NBT World, a vision of Thailand.
If we are able to develop some kind of the assessment that is sensitive and also specific enough to diagnose that group of patients, we would be able to put this group for the early treatment is one thing and can put them into like a preventive measure.
Swadikap. Welcome to NBT World Thailand today. Tonight we explore CheckPD, a groundbreaking application for assessing Parkinson's disease risk. Early detection is key to better treatment and care. Joining us is Professor Dr. Roongroj Bhidayasiri, Professor of Neurology and Director at Chulalongkorn Centre of Excellence for Parkinson's disease and related disorders, who's working in Parkinson's disease risk survey project in honor of Her Royal Highness Princess Maha Chakri Sirindhorn, Executive Vice President of the Thai Red Cross Society, to discuss how CheckPD is transforming early diagnosis and its impact on healthcare. Stay tuned. Swadikap.
Swadikap.
First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us and to talk about the topic that is very important in these days, and that's Parkinson's disease.
Yes.
But before we get into the topic, would you like to start by introducing yourself, maybe your name and any organizations that you represent?
Thank you. I'm Roongroj Bhidayasiri. I'm a professor of neurology and I'm the head of the Chulalongkorn Centre of Excellence for Parkinson's disease and related disorder. And I'm also a fellow of the Academy of Science, the Royal Society of Thailand.
All right. Thank you, Doctor, for that introduction.
Very pleased to be here.
Thank you. And let's get into the topic then. Why don't you tell us a little bit about CheckPD, the application that you recently developed. What was the inspiration behind the development of CheckPD and what it is?
We are very proud of this project actually, but we have to say that this is not really the new idea. We have been thinking about doing something that is going to help the doctors in that country to diagnose Parkinson's better. The situation is this, I'm in the Centre of Excellence for Parkinson's. We receive a large referrals of patients from all over the country. Even though we see so many patients, I think our cohort is over 5,000 patients now, but it's still a fraction of patients overall that have access to see the specialist. So that made me think within our center that what are we going to do here? If we're sitting passively, waiting for patients to come in, of course we can do that, and we regard ourselves as a specialist, super specialist, waiting for those who just only a fraction of patients who have the access to the specialist care, and that is not going to help the patients overall. So what we have been doing initially is to train the specialists in movement disorder and Parkinson's disease. Have we been successful in doing so? We have a fellowship program for over 10 years now. We train a number of doctors every year, 2 to 3 specialists per year, but still a very small number. So we think that in order to try to solve this problem, we have to be a bit more active. So we thought that it's so important that we need to be proactive, going out and try to capture a large number of patients, because if we in our center here we see so many advanced patients, and we recognize that the diagnosis is so much delayed. So in order to be proactive, we thought that one way to do so is to utilize the technology to help us to capture a large number of patients. So this is the really the inspiration and of the development of this application.
To make it more convenient for people to get detected with the risk of Parkinson's disease. How does it work actually, this application? Maybe you can tell us a little bit more?
It's the application that we aim for the self-assessment for the risk of Parkinson's. And as we all know, the Parkinson's disease is one of the fastest growing neurodegenerative disorder in terms of the prevalent disability and mortality. And that is quite alarming because half of the PPD populations, are expected to be in Asia, including Thailand, and we face these challenges as well as the other Asian country. So we thought that this check PD that we have been developing over the past few years is the self-assessment application.
Yes, it's very nice.
Yes, that we would be that the application is designed, tested and validated on the risk of the Parkinson's disease in the individuals. So, to determine that risk, we have to ask the subjects, the participants to do on different things. So, for example, we have a set of questionnaires asking about the potential risk, like for example, the pesticide exposure, the family history, the aging, and so on, which part of the
questionnaire. The normal questions you would ask your patient if they come in to see you, correct?
Yes, but we also have the questions, if they answer, that put them on not less likely to have Parkinson's, put it that way. So it's a combination of the question that we actually assess the risk, but also the protective factor. So we actually...
So it's both technical and tactical at the same time. Yes.
So the first part is the questionnaire. The second part is we ask the participants to say out the sentence and to say "ah," and that is for vocal assessment. And the third part is to check the finger dexterity. And this is really interesting. Most of the subjects find that it's quite fun to do this kind of test as well. So we ask the subject to do like the alternate finger tap.
Yes.
And then we measuring not just only the number of the finger tap, but in fact we measure different parameters within this delicate movement that the subject is doing. And then we assess for the presence of tremor and also the walking assessment. And with that, we have been tested and validated in a large number of patients, and we are able to achieve the accuracies of over 90%.
Oh,
we
wow.
published that.
That's amazing.
Actually, when we use the neurologist specialist in movement disorder as a gold standard, so the diagnostic accuracy has been quite good. Before we actually launching it, we have been piloting in the field. So we go to 2 provinces, Nakhon Sawan and Samut Prakan. We piloted in quite a good number of subjects there, and we demonstrate the validity.
You send a team down to the communities and you let your staff work on the people with this application?
Yes, and we work with the Thai Red Cross Society, fascinating organization. We work with them, we go to the field with them and validate it on the field as well, because we need to make sure that the application is not just only working in the hospital where subjects are more experienced with this kind of technology. We need to make sure that in the field, in the real life, the subject is able to do that as well.
Now this application is up and running, readily available to the public, and is it specifically restricted to any age groups, or anybody can try and it will be accurate for all?
We intend for those above 40 years old.
Okay, that's the intention.
Yes, to complete this application. However, and interestingly, we have a subjects who actually under the age of 40 who would be interested as well, and we don't mind that at all, because it would be nice to have the data in different age group as well. Nowadays, we know that although Parkinson's disease is one of the common neurodegenerative disorder among the elderly, but 10% of Parkinson's patients actually have the onset before 50 years old. And we call that as early onset Parkinson's disease. And this group of patients is still neglected. The society would not know that Parkinson's can occur in those who are still working in the adulthood and so forth as well. So we try to capture those as well.
So normally people under 50 wouldn't even think that they have an early symptoms of Parkinson's. Is that?
Yes. And
is that the perception?
That is the perception, and that is what the public would not understand, that Parkinson's can occur in the younger age group. But the reasons that we want to test those above 40 years is because Parkinson's usually have, let's put it this way, have very long incubation period. Before the patients to develop symptoms, like for example, the finger tremor on one side, they usually have the degeneration occur 10 to 20 years before that.
Oh, really? Okay.
And that period, we call it as a prodromal period, before the onset of the actual clinical symptoms. And why this occurs, now before that we didn't know that, why this actually happened, why there is a long prodromal period. But now we know that, the brain is such a fascinating organ. Before patients develop symptoms, the brain have what we might say is like a reserve system, that they compensate. They try to, compensate the deficits or the degenerations that occur slowly in Parkinson's disease. So the symptom usually occur when the cell death that produce the dopamine exceeds 60%. So the brain is able to compensate even more than half. So that period of 20 years, we find that, why do we need to wait for that actually? Because, if we are able to develop some kind of the assessment that is sensitive and also specific enough to diagnose that group of patients, we would be able to put this group for the early treatment is one thing, and can put them into like a preventive measure, because now there is much hope for Parkinson's that is not just only for the treatment alone. We can do different sorts of things that could potentially slow the disease progression, and that is what we really aiming for. Yeah.
I see. Let's talk about all the wonderful things that CheckPD can do. What's the technology behind this application? I know that you're using the built-in technology on your mobile phones a lot, the sensors, if you will. What other things are you relying on in order to affect the efficiency of this application?
Yes, of course, we use different sensors within the smartphone to detect different sorts of movement. But what actually happened with the analysis is that we use the large language model to analyze different sources of data that we test in during the subjects completing this application. The sensor data might detect the finger movement and walking and so forth, but the voice data, the kind of the descriptive data like the questionnaire and so forth, we use the combinations of those, and we put into the ensemble model that when we put into the machine learning is able to differentiate between those with Parkinson's and those without. Yeah.
Thailand, a land of success and reward. Reward your team with an extraordinary journey that celebrates their dedication and achievements. Immerse yourself in breathtaking natural landscapes. Indulge in the soothing touch of traditional Thai massages. Savor the diverse flavors of Thai cuisine and experience the charm of a culture rich in heritage. Give more than just relaxation. Give lasting inspiration. This incentive travel journey is more than just a reward. It's an opportunity to strengthen team bonds, ignite inspiration, and create lasting memories. Discover Thailand, your ideal MICE destination. Inspire your team today.
And now those who are subject to this application, they go through it and they found out that they have high risk of Parkinson's disease. What's the next course of action would you recommend?
Yeah, this is a very good question, because what we develop here is we don't want just to test them and that's it. So we actually have been working with a number of the partners, like for example the National Health Security officers and also the Thai Red Cross Society, to develop a network of referrals of those high-risk subjects. First, they need to go to the assigned hospitals or healthcare facility to get confirmed if they actually have Parkinson's disease. Once they get it confirmed by the neurological examination, they would be able to get the recommendations on the treatment. So that is the group who actually test as a positive and also diagnosed by the doctors of having Parkinson's. So that is first group. The second group is they have the high risk, but they don't as yet develop Parkinson's. And that what I mentioned to you before, this is like a those in the prodromal period. We would not call them as patients as yet. There are those at risk. So those at risk, if we see them outside, they probably would look like normal people, but they have these subtle clinical changes that would not be observed by the naked eyes. If they go to see the doctors, they might have like a very subtle tremor, for example. And those at risk, we actually would put them into the program for the preventive measure. And this is what we are designing at the moment. We want to focus on the lifestyle adjustment.
I see.
Exercise is very important. There's a certain type of exercise that is good for Parkinson's. Sleep hygiene. We invite them for the a number of the sleep tests, and also the dietary changes, dietary modifications. And with these lifestyle changes, the evidence is now becoming stronger that it could potentially alter or modifying the course of the developing Parkinson's disease. When we're hoping that we would put those at risk, hopefully they continue to be at risk, but they don't develop Parkinson's disease. Let's put it that way.
As you put it simply on your application, eat, move, sleep.
Yes,
right?
And also they have to repeat. So
yes,
move, sleep, and repeat. And we just add another thing is protect, because now with pesticide is one of the strong risk factors for Parkinson's. The protective factors that protecting yourself from this risk is also another.
Let's talk about the creation and the process of coming up with this application. What were some of your biggest challenge or some of the biggest limitations that you have to go through in order to arrive at this point?
There are several challenges along the process of development, but we feel that the benefit is actually outweigh these challenges. To put it simply, the real challenge is not about developing the applications. The real challenge is more so like to engage the populations to use it, to download and complete the test. Because nowadays, as we know, that the public is very concerned about this application, and sometimes they don't know whether this is genuine, if this is legitimate. Certain paradigm that we originally put in the applications, we intend to remove it just for the sake of the security. Like for example, the facial imaging. We used to put it there, but we decided to take it out because otherwise the public would be very concerned about the identity. That's the first thing. So we want to make sure that the data that we collect is not identified. So give it the assurance to the public about the legitimacy of and the safety of our application. And the other thing is that is a challenge is that the diversity of the population within the country and the digital literacies of the population, how much they want to engage into this type of applications is very different in different parts of the country. But this is a learning process. But I have to say that we have been very fortunate so far that we have a very good and strong partner like the Thai Red Cross Society and Chulalongkorn Hospital and National Health Security Offices, and we have been fortunate that we work as a team, and we are able to achieve quite a good number of the participants so far.
Very good to hear that. Maybe you answered this already, but just to be clear, how do you differentiate between early Parkinson's signs and normal signs of aging with this application? Maybe it doesn't do it through the application, but when you come see a doctor, how do you do it?
This is very, very good question, and I have to say that this might be part of it still a gray area. You know, as a specialist, you know, I find that sometimes it can be very, very difficult to diagnose patients with early Parkinson's disease. Maybe I just give you the example of the case that we all know, Michael J. Fox, whom we know that he's a Hollywood star, and he developed the signs of Parkinson's disease at the age of 29.
How old is he now?
It's probably over 50 or something. But the first symptoms that he recognized was the tremor of his left pinky.
Left pinky.
Yeah. And the tremor was so subtle and was intermittent. So when he actually went to see the first neurologist, they didn't find anything wrong with him.
They wouldn't think much of it.
No, they actually reassured him that he was normal, and then the symptoms progress later on. So that is challenge that you can see that with the early diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, when the symptom is quite subtle and is intermittent. Our eyes, our naked eyes, might be that sensitive in terms of the capturing those symptoms, and that goes along with some of the public perception that a little slow of the movement, a little tremor, a little unsteadiness might be because of the aging process, and to differentiate, though sometimes it takes time. In Parkinson's disease, it's a progressive disorder. With time, the symptoms will progress. So when I'm not sure with diagnosing if they have early Parkinson's, I do different things. The first option is continue to observe them. Don't just reassure them and go and discharge them. So they need follow-up, they need to come back. But now there is a sensitive test that might be able to help with the diagnosis. Sensor variables is one thing that we could do. There's special type of imaging that could be very helpful, measuring the dopamine level in the brain. That's one thing. And some of the associated tests, like for example, we ask the subject to do some smell tests or sleep tests that could find out, determine the risk as well.
What are some of the future collaborations or partnerships that you're looking for in the future in order to propel your application forward, or making it more able to detect more neurological diseases in the future?
We would like to partner with everyone who care about Parkinson's disease, actually. We want to, go onto the field. We want to go into every provinces. We want to work with the Ministry of Public Health, to have, to ensure that, the accessibility of this application is going to, every area of Thailand. But at the same time, we would also like to work with the university hospital, the specialists, because the data that we collected, we just don't want to get to the number. We just want to plan on this preventive measure. Although there are certain eat, move, sleep that I mentioned to you before, that is still quite a general principles. What we actually need is we need to have this lifestyle change that is very, let's put it that way, regionalized to the certain part of Thailand, for example, or even personalized if we have enough data. And that is what we are really, really hoping for, that, working to combat this type of the what I should say, that complex disorder like Parkinson's disease, one size doesn't fit all.
I see. What are some of the other symptoms that we may observe other than the motor problems or movement difficulties from the patient?
This is a very good question, but in fact the public would not know much that Parkinson's disease is actually a complex disorder that patients experience a range of not only the motor but also non-motor symptoms of, and these non-motor symptoms, many of them actually occur during the prodromal period. I give you the example, the problem with the sleep. Okay, the sleep problems that that risk of Parkinson's is usually the problem with the acting out dreams. So those who are at risk of having Parkinson's, they usually start to complain that they dream a lot, and their dream is quite vivid. It's not just only like a usual dream. Sometimes it's like they fight during the night, or they in danger, or is so adventurous, for example. And as such of that kind of the dream that is so vivid, they act out. Some of them shout out, some of them, moving their arms and legs, and some of them even hit their partner, some of them even fall off their beds. Oh, and this is one of the, early symptoms of Parkinson's disease that, we tends to inquire, and part of it is in the questionnaire as well. And this is, one of the high-risk symptoms of developing Parkinson's. Is one thing that I want to highlight here is the sleep problems, about the dreaming. The other non-motor symptom is the smell loss. And smell loss is actually quite difficult symptoms to capture because those who have the smell problem, many of them are not aware of it unless they have almost complete sense of smell. But retrospectively, when we ask them directly, they will say, "Oh yes, I thought that my smell is not as good as before." Those kind of things, but they would not usually volunteer that kind of information. The other common non-motor symptom is a constipation, but this is very difficult symptom to assess because and to put it as a risk of Parkinson's alone is so difficult because it's such a non-specific symptom. But usually, what we tend to ask the subject is that, to be able to have the risk of Parkinson's, they would have more than one of these non-motor prodromal symptoms. So, just only constipation alone would not increase their risk of Parkinson's disease. But if they have these acting out dreams, and then, with a constipation, and it is getting worse for the last few years, for example, that would potentially increase the risk, especially if there has a family history.
I see. Last but not least, last question. I want you to give your expert advice for the people, the public. How should they maintain their brain health, and what can they do on the daily basis to reduce the risk of Parkinson's?
First of all, they just want the public to understand that Parkinson's is not the disease of the old. Is actually close to all of us than we think. And we can learn a lot from Parkinson's disease as lessons to improve our health. It doesn't mean that what we talking here about Parkinson's disease, the way to combat it, is just going to be specific to Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is such a common neurodegenerative disorder that has been linked to a number of comorbidities, for example, vascular disease, diabetes, and stroke, for example. So the preventive measure that we are learning from Parkinson's disease can be applied as the general prevention for the brain diseases as well. So, as such, the type of, what I mentioned to you before about these dietary modifications, working on the healthy diet, the type of the exercise that is, focusing on the balance and the mobility and balance as well. And also the sleep hygiene that is not limited to just, sleep early, but, certain signs of the sleep problems that might be the early sign of the brain disorders. Once we are aware of that, one thing that would be good for the public is the early detection is one thing. And the second thing that everyone will be, enthusiastic, let's put it that way, for the preventive measure, taking care of themselves, self-assessment, and they want everyone to look positively and optimistically that, we are all in charge of our own health, and we can do that easily. And this is one of the Check PD is one of the examples that would help individual of us to for better health.
Dr. Roongroj, thank you so much.
you.
It all sounds so good.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time and your insight and your
You're
expert
welcome.
advice. We look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you
ขอบคุณมาก
Looking
ครับ
forward to ขอบคุณ
Thank
ค
you.
รับขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much for watching Thailand Today. See you all next week. สวัสดีครับ